Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon again, folks. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We are going back to that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we do, the usual disclaimers. If you are unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, you're going to find all the pertinent links right there in the description box. Please, in particular, take note of the article written by NeuroClastic, a small non for profit started by autistics for autistics. In it, they interviewed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so called behavior modification program. The Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read that article so much. They threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. NeuroClastic refused, so you know the drill. Please read the article, share it on all your social media. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding just in case the JRC ever actually does see through with their threat. Trigger warning 1: when we discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please make sure to use the headphones. Trigger warning 2: this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and we do speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously parental supervision is very much advised, all right? So where we left off, on to a new comment. Let's see if they bring up the same 1975 article again for like the 10th time. One comment states that a reference cited in the proposed rule, reference 66, included surprising findings on the use of shock pertaining to the immediate increase of socially directed behavior, such as eye to eye contact, physical contact, as well as simultaneous decrease in a large variety of inappropriate behaviors, such as whining, fussing, and facial grimacing. The comment asserts that FDA selectively used this information from this article for our own purposes. Jesus fucking Christ. Not every goddamn thing is a conspiracy. Once again, they are using the 1975 study, which says the polar opposite of what they're asserting, number one. Number two, it's from 19 fucking 75. It is hilariously outdated. And you are still stomping your foot and saying, but you're mischaracterizing everything that they're saying. Bitch, that doesn't matter. The study is from 1975. What are you not getting? It's outdated. The testing protocols were not the same in 1975 as they are now. They did not go under the same level of scrutiny as most medical papers being coming out now. That is the point. Your paper is about worth as much as the poor trees that were downed in its creation. That's pretty much it. Okay? But then you get better and you have eye to eye contact and you're communicating better and we're showing you exactly what you want to see. How many times do we need to have this conversation? That doesn't mean it's working. It means your kid learned to mask as a means of fucking survival. Okay? Let me put it point blank to you. If all of a sudden, out of the blue, your autistic kid starts acting like a perfect, there is no perfect neurotypical either. That's as big a lie as anything else, but I digress. That when we're showing you perfectly neurotypical behavior, it's an act. It's a mask. That's not your real kid looking at you. That's the character your kid created to replace them in these situations to show you what you want to see. We do this as a means of survival. And also because point blank we're exhausted with dealing with your neurotypical nonsense and bullshit. Cheering the fact that you have managed to get a kid to be able to produce a perfect mask, this is not success. You are teaching your kid how to live a lie. Not to mention, parents, what happens when your child breaks character? Tell me, person to person, what happens when the overexhaustion and being overwhelmed that comes with masking 24/7, when that breaks down because it's exhausting mentally, physically, psychologically, emotionally exhausting to do. So, what do you think is going to happen? Well, that's usually the particular type of cocktail that leads to autistic burnout and meltdowns. Let me give you an example that's extremely current. My current boss, God bless him, he has a good heart, but he has not the faintest idea how to coach or be a manager of an autistic person, nor the fact that continuing to act like the living embodiment of the sword of Damocles is not going to suddenly make my numbers go up because of the pressure. The polar opposite's going to happen. My extreme paranoia has increased. My anxiety levels are literally through the roof. The anxiety became so bad last weekend that I could not fully function whatsoever. I couldn't even get myself up to do my normal weekend chores. I was completely, utterly crippled and riddled with anxiety. Okay? I had 3 meltdowns in 3 days. All of them right before I had to get on the phones and deal with this person. I haven't had a meltdown in 10 years. Okay? And with that crippling anxiety comes things that I thought were over with. My acid reflux is back with a vengeance. The extreme paranoia that's fun that comes straight from my PTSD is in full effect. Any sudden noise, I will jump right out of my skin. And yes, been losing some skills that I previously had in my repertoire. Okay? Why am I explaining to you the consequences? Or the fact that I'm currently undergoing them? Because that's what happens when the mask breaks, when you're forced to mask 24/7. Okay? The sheer exhaustion, the absolute being emotionally overwhelmed after having tried everything and done everything that I've been asked, and yet it is still the same or worse. It's burnout, kids. Meltdowns are also an effect of what happens when you're forced to mask and hold down and push back and set aside your autistic self for too long. There's a price. Ask any of these parents. down the road about 20 to 30 years from now. Not right now, when they're seeing what they want to see. Ask them 20, 30 years down the road from now. Did their kid, out of nowhere, after behaving and being perfect for so long, suddenly have a crash? What I mean by that, did they suddenly have a reemergence of those behaviors? They have a reemergence of meltdowns, increased anxiety, increased paranoia, increased sense of not wanting to go out into the world. That is a result of masking too long, being forced to be who you are not for too long, for 24/7 with no breaks. Okay? So it doesn't matter if your fucking violence causes those kids to mask as a means of survival. We're talking longevity here. You getting the instant results that our gimme, gimme, gimme culture demands doesn't speak to what's going to happen down the road. Your kid has perfected a mask that this neurotypical world forces every single last one of us, willingly or not, to create. Some of the bravest bastards on this planet are the individuals who are autistic, who have ripped off the mask and never put it back on. I'm not one of those individuals yet. Working on it. That's what we're talking about here. When you see those improvements and they say, like, see, it's working, really look at it. Really look at it. Are you seeing what you want to see in an almost perfect picture? That should be a red flag. No kid that is a neurotypical behaves that perfectly for that long. Something is up. Reminds me of when I was a kid, when we used to say, "Hi, Mom, you look pretty today. What do you want?" Right? Yeah, that. So you can't really even use that as a success, because all of us, to varying degrees, learn to mask at least somewhat to show you what you want to see. That doesn't mean that the underlying issue that was causing the behavior that you wanted changed so much isn't still there. It is. That issue is still there. It's just buried. It guarantees something or someone or whatever is going to happen at some point that's going to knock them off character. And guess what shoots up like a rocket? I know, I'm dealing with it right now. All of those not so fun parts of our diagnosis. Even things that we have quote unquote improved on begin to deteriorate. Okay? So, can we please stop with the nonsense of, but the treatment, and now they're doing eye to eye contact and all the things that I know are horribly painful and uncomfortable to them, but they're acting normal, so I get what I want. And isn't that what's really important here? Me, 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 me. My, 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 my. I want, I want, I want. It's centered around the parents and what they want, not what the patient wants, not what it is emotionally, psychologically, and physically good for the autistic child. It's all about, will you give me the child that I want instead of this autistic thing you saddled me with. Ultimately, if you look at those testimonials, that's what you'll take from it. And you should. Because everyone forgets, whether it's JRC or the more well accepted versions of ABA out there. At the end of the day, it's not really centered around us, it's centered around our fucking parents and what they want. What we want doesn't even get to become a part of the equation. That's why such methods were thrown out the window when it comes to me. Why they went with person centered planning. Because I would have not been down for that for 2 seconds before I would have told them about themselves in the most colorful language available to me at the time. Okay? The comment asserts that the FDA selectively used information from this article for our own purposes. So this is the JRC all over again. Everybody's out to get them. It's all us advocates' fault. We got the whole world against it because we have all the pool money in the world and no jobs. What the hell is wrong with these people? None of us have anything to gain for the JRC to go down in flames other than profound relief that another torture center will no longer be there to threaten future generations of us. That's pretty much it. I'm getting no money from this. Are you kidding? You really think I would be tolerating what I am right now, forcing to get myself on that computer every single day, suffering the way I am from my own diagnosis because of it? If I was getting paid for this shit, there's no way in hell. All right? No way. But they do this over and over again. It's the advocates' fault, and they are just willfully misinterpreting us. Everybody's misinterpreting the JRC except for the JRC. Sounds like a school slash cult version of AH, doesn't it? Doesn't it, though? Is everybody lying, JRC? Everybody out to get you? Everybody's just making up stuff and immediately just biasly stating things in our favor, all to bring you down, as though none of us have jobs or free time or families or renting landlords, homes, houses. Please, please spare me. Please spare me. All right. The FDA's own purposes is to do their damn job. Okay? Their job is to analyze all of this information. This truck drove multiple diesels in a row going down I-44, mounts of paperwork and information they had to sort through, okay? They are not being biased towards your 1975 paper. They are telling you the same goddamn thing that the science and medical world have been trying to tell you for over the last 40 goddamn years. It's hilariously outdated. The intents and purposes of the paper do not match with the JRC's, and its conclusions at the end actually determine the exact opposite of what the JRC is trying to push. The fact that we can state this and the JRC is like, well, then you're misinterpreting it. No, we're not misinterpreting it. Clearly, it said conclusions. And the doctor made his hypothesis based on what he had gathered during that clinical study. It's not in your favor, JRC. It was never. in your favor. Nor do you provide the reader with proper context, JRC. What was the world like in 1975 when it came to developmental disability folks getting treatment? Because it's a hell of a lot different from this current world, and that's the damn point. But they stop whining and fussing and grimacing, and it's all inappropriate. What the fuck do you think the neurotypical teenager does? Have you ever met a teenager? Neurotypical or non neurotypical? Every last goddamn one of us is the same. We are whiny, we are fussy, we are bitchy, we've got bad attitudes, we think we know it all, we are back talking, name calling little punks. Okay? Facial grimaces, whining, fussing, inappropriate comments, and enough curse words coming out of our mouth to make a sailor blush. That's being a fucking teenager. Those behaviors you just stated are some of the most natural behaviors produced by the human animal, especially when we're talking about teenagers. Of course, the threat of violence. Remember, I'm Gen X. I was one of the last generation that actually got spanked for bad behavior. Now, ask me, did any of that spanking in the long term do anything to curb dangerous, life threatening behaviors? No. Again, the argument can be made that they would indeed make it worse. Oh, you don't want me to do this? I'll show you. Hold my beer. Right? We know the saying, hold my beer. I'm Drax and I'm going to go do the thing. When we're kids, we're fucking stupid. All right? None of that spanking deterred us from life threatening activities. None of them. There was no long term effect that eventually coming out of those risky behaviors. You want to know what did? Proper treatment. Person centered planning, where I was in control of my whole treatment program and I was the ultimate nay or yay on whether or not something was going to start to be worked on. But number one was when I started advocating and became more familiar with my peers. That changed my whole life. The way I communicate, the fact that I've become so good at communication was not hanging out with neurotypicals, not doing this clinical in the office bullshit. It was being amongst my peers and the level of freedom that that gave. That there was no mask needed here. That's when things not just improved, but improved at light speed. Right? Now, this also brings to point what I was bringing up previously. Remember when I talked about the fact that all the medical model is focused on trying to force us to be neurotypical? Bingo, right there. Right the fuck there. Eye to eye contact is painful. It is literally a physical sensation, almost like if somebody were to stick a needle into both of my eyeballs and straight into my brain. Okay? It is actual physical sensation. It's not pleasant. All right? Forcing us to do that for your own comfort is the absolute height of narcissism. It's the absolute height of it's all about me and I want you to look in the eye. I don't care if it physically causes you pain to look me in the eye. I demand it. I'm the parent. So we're going to force you to do this thing that causes you physical pain so that you'll be indistinguishable from your neurotypical peers. Who's the neurotypical peers, you ask? Well, that's the people behind me rolling their eyes as they open their books. Also, not giving eye to eye contact. Especially these days with everybody's heads in their phones. Forcing physical contact, that should send chills down your spine. Literally, part of ABA is supposed to open us up to physical contact. What is wrong with that? There's a problem. It teaches you to never say no to physical contact. Now, mind you're an autistic female or male, and someone touches you inappropriately in a way that you don't approve of. But you've had ABA hammered into you your whole life. So you know, even if you don't want it, you're not supposed to say no to physical contact. Now tell me how this can go horrifically wrong. Yeah. But all the other behaviors that we don't like go away because we learn to mask. We're showing you what you want to see because we want the violence against our person to stop. But the mask can never stay on forever. Hence why I brought up the things that I've been going through lately so you can comprehend and understand where that line of thinking gets us. We're going to go ahead and close on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few we do tend to get removed from time to time. If you could, folks, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and please don't forget to hit the comments. I appreciate your time. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. I'll see you again in a few minutes.